Thanks for coming out, everybody. I really appreciate the opportunity from the community at Dallesport. My name is Andy Callanan, and I'm running for Klickitat County Commissioner District 2. I never intended to be a politician. I was born on the west side, raised on the west side, and attended college at Central Washington University, where I obtained a degree in law and justice while paying for college with an Army ROTC scholarship, at the conclusion of which I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Reserves. I fell in love with the Cascade Range shadow during my time in Ellensburg, and when I had an opportunity to become a park ranger, I also attended a park ranger academy at Skagit College, and that launched my law enforcement career since the Soviet Union didn't cooperate with my active duty military career plans. I was first stationed up at Lake Roosevelt National Park, and during my short tenure with the National Park Service, I learned that you really had to be willing to move around the country, like active duty military, and now in my experience working for the state with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Forest Service, they move around every 3 or 4 years. And I was born and raised in Washington. I love this state, and I didn't want to leave it. So when I had an opportunity to transfer to Washington State Parks, I took it. I ended up down here in Klickitat County and found the weather and the climate and the proximity to the urban centers an hour and a half to the west from the I-5 nuttiness. I found it very similar to my time in Ellensburg, and I really fell in love with the area. And I've been here for 33 years. My peers would ask me, when are you going to move? Because even within the state, to climb a ladder, you need to move around. And I didn't want to. I grew roots here, and I wanted to stay here. So I've been doing that for 33 years. I met my wife here in the Gorge, and we're coming up on our 30th anniversary here this year. And we have one son who's currently serving in active duty in the Army. So I was just a citizen, hoping to get to retirement one day, go fishing, and read some books, and really just enjoy what working life is for. When I started to become more involved in watching the political landscape we see every night on the news, national stuff, and then the state stuff as Olympia tries to press down on us here in Eastern Washington. And I jumped into the 2024 state legislative race. And during that time, I really learned a lot about politics and about what was going on here in the county. And as I approach 40 years of public service, I've really decided that I want to finish it out by serving the county that I've called home for the last 33 years. I believe that my experience as an Army officer and a manager and an operator for parks, my degree in law and justice, makes me uniquely qualified for this position. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lori Zoller, and I'm the current District 2 County Commissioner. So I love my job, and that's why I'm running again, and I have a lot more to finish. For those who have not heard my bio before, I came from a timber cattle ranching family, large family, only 3 girl cousins in the family. So we started in with accounting classes at 16 and entered into the family businesses. Were expected to go to work. Just like the boys went to work in the woods. From there, I naturally migrated to Department of Natural Resources as a timber sales clerk and handled multi-million-dollar account sales and the accounting and billing for the Department of Natural Resources. And I also trained as a forest practice clerk at that time, which gave me information on land use planning, stream typing, environmental setbacks, and endangered species issues. And I saw what those did to local people and their timber and their property rights. It's not an easy thing to do a private business. I then took a job in Trout Lake with the U.S. Forest Service that was similar, moving to the east side. And that's where I met my husband, Tracy, who introduced me to the recreational industry. And together we have raised 6 children and have 11 grandchildren. We have a recreational business for whitewater rafting and fishing with a small resort for over 40 years now. I served on our local school boards, and I also been on the Klickitat Community Council. I've been in dedicated service for Klickitat County for over 30 years now. I served on the Planning Commission for 10 years to help make critical land use decisions and advise the commissioners. And I was hired by the county as the administrator and facilitator for watershed planning and fish recovery. An unfunded mandate that came from the state. So for them, I developed 6 boards which still exists today. Volunteer citizens help with those boards and help local landowners move through those issues. So I'm proud of those boards, including the Water Conservancy Board, that really helps people transfer water rights without the cost and the years of negotiation with the Department of Ecology. Along with that effort came grant writing and grant management. So I've managed multi-million-dollar fish recovery and watershed planning grants for the county through the auditor's office. I also served on the Wild and Scenic Rivers Board and the Gorge Commission. I'm currently the commissioner that helped with the Gorge Commission issues to fight, to push back, and hopefully develop more in our urban boundaries. I have a real estate degree with leadership, facilitation, and conflict resolution training, and I'm well known for standing up for what's right. Coming in as a county commissioner, my goal is to bring back civility to the Board of County Commissioners. I feel that we've accomplished that. We have a great board now that's working forward together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before the next speaker, when you're speaking, can you please stand up? Not for Andy.
Okay.
But yeah, that way everybody in the back can see you. I think it's just going to be advantageous if you stand up while you speak. I know. I'm just saying.
So if I get the equipment. Hi there, I'm Gene Pajeski, running for Klickitat County Commissioner District 2. Currently your building inspector for Klickitat County for the last 10 years. Many of the projects I have finals around here. Right next door when they switched to the DNR, I was one of the inspectors that walked through the water facility, the tank up above Murdoch there. So with that, I came to the county 40 years ago visiting in Glenwood and fell in love with the county. And but at the time I wasn't a logger. I was a construction worker over in Tri-Cities with my dad, running a small business 40 years ago. So just learning trades and eventually really into customer service, dealing with people putting out fires, so to speak, angry people. And that's why I figure stepping in as county commissioner, I'm a good listener. People who call, who know me as the inspector, can call me anytime. I will walk you through and try not to make people do anything that they don't have to do, you know, to get their job final. And just kind of reassure them when they start to panic, you know, that we can work through this and get this done. So I would like to continue to bring that mentality as the inspector into the commissioner, just to be available to listen to people and just try to work through anything that people might have. So with that, I'm going to close. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to go to the sheriff's side of the table.
Good evening. I'm Dwayne Matulovich, and I'm here because I'm asking for your vote to be your next sheriff. I'm a lifetime resident of Washington. I've lived in Klickitat County for over 22 years, and I'm prepared to be your next sheriff. I'm a candidate that has 19 years of full-time law enforcement experience in this county. I'm a candidate that has worked for the Vincennes White Salmon Police Department, the Golden Dale City Police Department, and the Klickitat County Sheriff's Department. This gives me institutional knowledge of each department. And I'm the candidate that has supported the police chiefs, present and past, working for this county. They have worked with me in the past, and they know my character and my ethics. And like you, I recognize that change is needed for our community's public safety. I grew up in the Gorge, started at very humble beginnings. Hard work was ingrained in me at a very early age. I worked my way through high school, through college. I started my career in law enforcement. I got married, and I started a family. Just like everyone here, I want to live the American dream. I know we all want safety in our homes, security in our streets, and open and unbiased communication with law enforcement. If we must call for an emergency, I know we want a timely response. I believe everybody should be treated with dignity and respect, no matter if you're the victim or the alleged suspect. I'll be leading by example. I'll be working administration that can cover when staffing is short. This keeps me in touch with the deputies and the communities I serve. I'll be financially responsible, and I'll work with my budget. Our deputies will have the opportunity, or more opportunities, to have career development, so we can build our future leaders right here from within. I will have a certified public information officer that will handle information responsibly and avoid traumatizing victims, or re-traumatizing victims. Our county runs on volunteers, and I will strengthen the reserve program so we have trained, commissioned law enforcement volunteers throughout our county. I will reshape the posse program to make it stronger, volunteer organization that does not present themselves as law enforcement. I will build a department you can trust with transparency and open communication. I will work with the best interests of the community. This department will be about law enforcement and not parties, not political parties. I'm a candidate that has your best interest at heart, and I'm asking for your vote to be your next sheriff. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Bruce, and I also am asking for your vote. I'm running for sheriff of Klickitat County. I want to start off by saying I'm happily married to my wife, Anita. It would be, I did the math right in my head, 38 years at the end of August. And I have not lived in Klickitat County my entire life. But we chose to move here. We could have chose anywhere in the nation. And so we fell in love with Klickitat County for some of the same reasons many of you who moved here also fell in love with the area, with the waterways, with the hiking trails, and just the natural beauty that exists here. And the ruralness and not having your neighbor right next to you. I'm a retired chief of police. I have over 35 and a half years of law enforcement experience. I worked at 3 agencies. I started in Allen, Texas as my hometown where I graduated high school. While there, I attended the University of Texas at Dallas and got a bachelor's degree in sociology and a master's degree in public affairs. I got an opportunity to leave Allen and go next door to Frisco. It was a small town at that point. I was the 24th officer hired. And I got a chance to run the investigative unit as the CID sergeant. And that city exploded. And it gave me a lot of opportunities to go through a lot of training, through a lot of schools, to learn a lot about management and administration. And I worked my way up through the chain of command. I was a captain. I was an assistant chief. I became the chief of Frisco, Texas. After 33 years, I left Texas, retired, and I took the job in Richland, Washington. And I worked there for just over 2.5 years. I understand management, I understand budgeting, I understand hiring, firing, discipline, and I know how to treat employees well. And with that, thank you. Okay. Now, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'll say I am also running for sheriff. My name is Tony Warren. I live in White Salmon currently. I grew up on the west end of Skamania County, rural area over there. I grew up in a family of law enforcement. My father worked for the Skamania County Sheriff's Office for his career.
I retired as sheriff from there. So I grew up with those influences. I grew up with family, friends, and law enforcement, and had them mold me somewhat, if you will. Graduated Washington High School in '96. In '97, I was fortunate enough to be able to go to the Reserve Academy, starting with Canadian County. This academy was put on by Clark County. So of course I was still young, so for a couple of years I helped out in dispatch, helped out in jail. When I was old enough to legally carry a firearm, I started helping out on the road. And if you don't know, a reserve deputy is just like a volunteer firefighter. I volunteer my time to learn the trade and help out and have a little fun. A few years later into that, I was hired part-time through the holidays by the sheriff of Canadian County. Several of us reserved to work recreation area on the west end of the county. Had a lot of fun doing that. When I was in my first or second year doing that, I decided this is a career I should do full time. At that time, a lot of agencies wanted college degrees, so I did get a bachelor's in criminal justice through Colorado Technical Institute. They have an online program. So while working full time, working part time, and a second part time job, I also did the online classes to get my degree there. Started applying a few places. First place I landed was Benjamin White Police Department, 2008. They hired me full time. Worked there 11 years. Through that department, I was an officer, dedicated detective for 5 years, field trainer, firearms instructor, managed a few different programs. Also currently with the Klickitat County Sheriff's Office. I've been here 5 years. I'm a detective sergeant here currently. Field training program coordinator, manager as well, and several other small programs. I do some training. A couple of task force like the internet crimes against children, which is stuff we don't want to talk about. Warranty commander now, so we're overseeing that program. That's a little bit about me. So why I'm running for sheriff. I think we have great communities and a great department. I think it needs to be, there needs to be some changes. I see a lot of small things that we can change to make sure we're focusing on protecting people's safeties as well as their freedoms. Those are the two most important things to me. Protecting the constitutional rights of every resident, supporting our deputies, accountability and professionalism, and focusing on real public safety solutions such as preventing crime before it starts. Those are going to be big things for me. She's about to raise the stop, so I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Yeah, she's on those signs. So yeah, as you're speaking, please keep an eye on that. So, that's who we have today, and I'm going to start out with the first question that was given to me. This is for each of the county commissioner candidates, and we'll start with Al, and come this way. What do you feel are most critical operations where county commissioner can help Dallesport community?
Most critical operations?
That's what it says. You didn't need to stand.
No, that's all right. I'm not gonna seek any special favors here. All right. So I lived in Dallesport for quite some time as the head ranger out of Horse Thief Lake Ranger Station. My son attended this elementary school until it was closed, and then he was sent to Delisle. But I have a fondness for this community. I think this community has the greatest potential for growth within the county. And within the county, if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think Dallesport has the greatest opportunity with its industrial area, its airport, its water system, its sewer treatment plant. There's a lot of pieces that are in play here. I can remember probably 20 years ago, the first time I saw an article about a golf course and housing developments around it and a whole bunch of stuff, and it seemed like it was working down some permit path, and then it disappeared. And another one came along. But seeing the development and growth of the college footprint with the aviation maintenance and other programs over there, I think this community has a huge opportunity to grow. And I think it, if it wants to, I think it could seek incorporation at some point in time with some of the development, people trying to move out of the Dalles and get over here. And so making sure that the community has an opportunity to capitalize on its public utilities that are here in place already and use them and leverage them to that growth if that's what the community wants to do. In addition, I've heard a lot of things about parks here in the Dallesport community. And it sounds like that's something the community really wants. There's a couple of properties that are held in trust for that. And having worked for parks for the state for over 33 years now, starting in June of '93, I know something about parks and park development, park operations. And if that's something that moves forward, I'd really like to help the community realize that and benefit from that. If not one, maybe both those properties. So those are things I'd like to see. I think when you have growth, you have some business opportunity, and you have some of that financial growth that comes with it. There was a brochure, The History of Dallesport. If some of you folks don't know, it was started out as the Grand Dalles. There was a developer back in the 1870s or so. Taylor was buying everything up, and he was selling brochures, and he had grand visions for Grand Dalles. But it just didn't pan out. I think they had a shoe and boot factory, but we can do better today. So that's what I'd like to see happen with Dallesport.
Okay, Lori?
Thank you. Dallesport is a special community. It always has been to the county commissioners. My first remembrance of Dallesport was when the septics were failing for the few community members that were here back then, and they were going to have their homes red tagged. And the county commissioners went to work, did some funding from the Republic Services at that time, and then actually accessed grants, one of which was a CDBG grant for development that I wrote for the county and the PUD to help bring in that wastewater treatment plant. I was working for fisheries at that time, and I was able to help negotiate through National Fisheries to get you a special permit along the Columbia River. That's very important to protect that. You probably wouldn't get that permit today with the environmental changes that we have. So moving forward, protecting that wastewater treatment plant and keeping it compliant, bringing forward is very important to Dallesport. It does have growth capability, as does your water district and other water resources. I've worked with water resources and understand their value, and I'm willing to fight for Dallesport to bring in what this community wants. As I was a county commissioner, I also realized that our comp plan was seriously behind, almost 20 years. And we've been able to get that back on board and develop a program to come around to each community. We needed to watch our budget, so I worked with the planning department and developed a workbook that will be coming to your community, where you can have input on your ideas and what you'd like to see for your community and in the future. That will come back to the planning department. And as we put our planning documents together for the comp plan for the next 50 years, your documents will be there to help guide what this community wants and where it wants to go. We have several unincorporated communities in Klickitat County. As such, they need the care of the county commissioners. We are kind of like your stepsons. You are not an incorporated city, so you need the help from us for the funding and for the direction. And the county commissioners, this board is dedicated for that, and so on.
I'm not good at this speaking. So, anyways, yesterday I was out at the airport, signing up footings for the new hangar for the club for the college, and then so I was out there a few weeks ago walking around the airport with Jeff and realizing that I was not aware that that airport is 900 acres. And so there's a whole bunch of potential to bring stuff into Dallesport. The housing development over here that Wallace is doing, I've done pretty much all the inspections on those houses, so it's nice to see the growth slowly in the community. So I would like to try to keep growth coming into the community. projects as working for the county, I always see the emails come across, pre-subs and that kind of thing. So I'm always aware of, you know, what's in Dallesport, trout lake, white salmon, all over. So I am a part of that as far as inspections and plan review and that kind of thing. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next question is once again, all the commissioner candidates. So I'm gonna switch it up and we'll start with Jean on this one.
So I should have stayed standing?
You should not. The question is, do you support or oppose a data center in Dallesport? Yes or no first, then explain why. Go ahead, Jean. Take a stab.
Take a stab, huh? And I was trying to avoid that one. No. Data centers. Okay, I've been doing tons of research. When I was up at Glenwood helping out before the rodeo a few weeks prior, helping set up, pretty much talking to everybody while I'm on the job, it comes up quite a bit. And me personally and the people that I talk to, they don't want the data center. I don't either. And knowing our water is such a precious resource. I understand we need the jobs and everything, but the bottom line is that's just a precious resource. Without that, what do we have? And I've watched many things on the internet. What was it? There was a Native American who was holding up his cell phone saying, when this could provide water and everything, that he'd be okay with the data center. And I agree with that. But he said, Steve Jobs proved to us that when you die, this stays behind. So anyways, that's how I feel. And the constituents that I've talked to clearly don't want it. And they're the ones I would be representing. So, thank you.
So I'm going to answer in two ways. I'm going to answer personally. I'm not a fan of technology. I think I was born in the wrong century. I should have been born in the pioneer times. I was not a fan of a cell phone when I had to start using it at the county. My husband had one, but I refused to have one. The unfortunate side of it is technology is here. I've done research too. I'm a data-driven person. It actually started in the 1940s with IBM and the Bell Corporation. They brought in the first version of data center. And as we transformed as a society up into the 80s, when we all started getting personal computers and business computers, the need to connect to a server became huge. By the 1990s, we were moving into formalized data centers to collect things so that we all could have businesses and information collected, including for your health care and your phone services. Everything that we use today is connected to those data centers for storage. And they invented the cloud, which then even grew that data center. The struggle has been the environmental degradation with the air and the water and the use of water. From the 90s, they've been professionalizing the data centers, changing the environmental requirements, also changing the tax status to more health communities that they do come into. So as we transition to this, the county commissioners do talk to people that come forward with proposals. That's all we have in our county right now. There's nothing in reality. We have proposals from big companies. And as we listen to those proposals, there's really nothing that we can affect or do until they actually do their first, we're going to do this and lay down an application. Then we get our crack at starting public meetings. And I can tell you, as a commissioner, I was not a fan at all of the first way that we moved into green energy and what happened with the green energy. There wasn't one public meeting, there wasn't any public input, and the solar and the wind came in through private leases with the landowners, which is their right, but then we had to deal with that at the county. So there's leftover residue that we're working with in the county that is not a happy situation, and we have to correct some things. And we've learned a lesson. From the beginning, we wire down the environmental consequences. We wire down what we can get for community benefits, and we wire down what happens environmentally with the water and the electricity. So that's where I'm going with data centers at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
I'd heard a little bit about data center at the old aluminum plant site, and there was a lot of talk about that. And then just recently, I think in the last few weeks, is when I became aware of this Dallesport one that's being entertained. And I did a little bit of research, reading some of the articles and things that were available, and it looks like it would seek to basically replace an orchard. And data centers, they're needed. We need to keep up with China. They need to be somewhere, but I don't believe the Dallesport area where they're talking about is an appropriate place, but data centers do have a place somewhere. I don't think that's the right place. When they do come along, I think they need to have their own power source. What they do to impact the power needs of the communities around, what we know as we've watched with fuel prices in recent times, supply and demand drives the cost. And if something else comes in that needs that much power, it's gonna affect what's available for us, and then it's gonna affect our rate. And I don't think that's what the community needs here. I don't think that's what the citizens of Klickitat County need here. But they're, again, just like the energy overlay zone and where wind is appropriate or where solar is appropriate, there are other more appropriate places, I believe, than the Dallesport orchard areas. And I'm also curious about, a question was raised to the planner at the time for an opinion on the data centers and what they were. And as I understand it from my readings, the county planner said, oh, it's the same as light industrial, it's like a warehouse. I don't think a data center is like a warehouse at all. A warehouse is usually a steel building with some metal sheet siding and some lights and some sort of HVAC to take care of what's in there. And they don't draw the power, they don't draw the water. My well went bad about 12 years ago. I know water is precious. I haul water. When you don't have water, it puts you back like you're in a third world country. I hauled 20 gallons a day, 5 for showers, or 10 for showers and 5 for each of the sinks. When my well started squirting out acid water. So I'm concerned about impacts on water, and I'm concerned about impacts on energy and the orchards and agriculture that is in the Dallesport Peninsula. I think there's more appropriate places for data centers to be considered.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to wake up the sheriffs, and we'll have a question for you, each one of you, and we'll start out with Dwayne. What is one measurable thing you would do to change in your first year as sheriff? Dwayne? Oh, okay. I thought he was in a trance, well, hold on.
So one thing that I think would be a measurable thing that I could do is provide more bang for your buck. And the one thing that I would do to start out with is have, like I said, an administration that works, because the budget is probably not going to get any more. And right now we need more deputies. So I would start out with 2 people that can work the road at any given time. That would be the administration. So when staffing is short, that would be the first thing I work on.
Thank you very much. John?
Thank you. So I believe, one of the biggest issues that we have here is the number of deputies in the county. we all feel like that there's not enough, that response times take a long time. And I propose that what needs to occur is a staffing study, which I have a background and experience in doing, to identify exactly how many deputies do we need for Klickitat County. And then work with the commissioners to develop a strategic plan for hiring said deputies, because I think that there are things that we could do to make that happen, and we do need more deputies. There has not been an increase in over 20 years from what I've been told.
Thank you. Tony?
Of course, there'd be a lot to do in that first year. There's a lot to do in the first year, and there's gonna be some budget constraints, because that next year's budget, of course, is being worked on here now, so we might have to work within that budget. Or we might be able to find some supplemental funding for another couple of deputies. I know we were asking for the funding this year to add to next year, I do believe. And that would be the hugest thing we could do. I keep saying that adding 3 to 4 more deputies total would have a huge impact on the level of service we can provide to the communities, as well as all the deputy wellness for that matter. And these guys need time off too, and it's hard to get that when they're working 5 days, 6 days, or even more a week if they're concerned. So my biggest things for year one would be to try to find that funding for the additional 2 deputies. We can increase our efficiency to where deputies are not having to spend as much time on calls. We have more on, just adjusting schedules a little bit to keep more out there instead of running short like we have. And we have a lot of days where there's just 2 cars on, sometimes less. I work a lot of extra shifts to cover those for people. But there's some wiggle room and I think some scheduling where we can try to mitigate that a little bit and improve that. So those are my big things.
Thank you. The next question is for all of the candidates, so both sheriff and commissioner. Let's go from left to right, so we'll start with Tony. I know you said What have you done in the last year to prepare yourself to be our sheriff and or commissioner? Make a lot of signs.
Nothing. A few things. So, just trying to get out more with the communities and learn the community needs and what you guys want to see from the sheriff's office, where you want us to go. That's one of my big things, is having that community involvement, your guys' input, your suggestions or your gripes. I want to hear those so I can be able to mold the department to fit your guys' needs. I've attended additional trainings. I completed my FBI Leader Trilogy. I did first line supervisor training. I went to WASPIC, which is the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs Conference, and several Washington State Sheriffs Association meetings. So starting to network with those sheriffs of other agencies and learn some of their issues and some of the things that affect us in this day and age, such as Senate bills and these things the state wants to pass that I completely disagree with. Aside from that, it's just meeting people, trying to get support, learn people's issues, and I have really had to develop a lot tougher skin from some people that want to bash me all the time. So that's one huge thing I've done. I mean, as sheriff, I need to not be so quick to fire back and so upset with some of the things. So I'm learning.
Thank you. John?
So I began this journey a couple of years ago as people in the community that had gotten to know me asked me if I would consider running for sheriff. And I'll be honest with you, my initial response was, thanks, but no thanks. However, they continued to ask. I started attending the Board of County Commissioners meetings on a regular basis, listening to the issues that are going before them, listening to how they do and don't work through issues. Because I feel like that's important as an executive of an agency to understand how government works. I've been meeting with a lot of different people and groups across this county to identify what are those issues that you think we need to be fixing within the sheriff's office, because my message is simple. It's your sheriff's office. You are Klickitat County, and it is your sheriff's office. And so you do have a voice in what goes on. And so that's what I've been doing, is listening and taking a lot of notes.
Thank you. Dwayne?
So in the last year, just so everybody knows, I'm not currently in law enforcement. I actually work for BNSF Railroad. In the last year, I have challenged myself to step up to take more foreman roles, because I started as a laborer. I worked all the way up to foreman, so in several different disciplines I've held the foreman. And that comes with a fair amount of training, leadership, because you are managing anywhere from 1 to 20 people at times. And one of the things I got the opportunity to do recently was go through Echelon Front's training. That's with Jocko Williams. He's the one who wrote the book, Extreme Ownership. And that's something I can really relate with, because he says you build leaders from the ground up, and I can really follow that ideology, and that's what we need to do, is build from the ground up, including myself. So I took that to heart, to want to be a better leader in everything I do at home, in the community, and that's what I've been doing in the last year, is reading that book, doing the training, taking on the responsibility with the railroad. And then the other part of it is getting back out in the communities, because that was what I liked doing anyways. I like talking to people in the community, find out what they need, what they want, and hear what they would want, like Tony from the Sheriff's Department. So that's what I've been doing, preparing, and then always volunteering. I left law enforcement, I went right back to being a volunteer firefighter. That was a passion I had from the time I was 16 until I became a cop. I stopped doing that, and as soon as I left law enforcement, I went back into it. So again, getting back out in the community, making those connections, that's what I do.
Thank you. Gene?
So as the building inspector, for the last 10 years, the last few years, I've been doing a lot more paperwork, learning what they call SmartGov, which, from my understanding, is going to be available to the public as far as looking at permits, parcel numbers, activities. So I've been doing more paperwork as far as what's coming, what's going to be coming. So as a commissioner, I already have a head start with that. And then just interacting with everybody in the last few years, hearing their concerns and their complaints and everything, and just talking to people out there, just being the one to listen. I joke a lot of times and say it's like when my wife gets mad at me and she's having a discussion and I want to interact and try to solve it. She just tells me, hey, I just want to voice my opinion. I don't need a reaction. So a lot of times I joke that I'm the guy out there meeting everybody, covering for a lot of things that people are concerned about, and able to have, answer them or get the answers for them. So that's what I've been doing the last year. Thank you.
I think I have an unfair advantage as I am a seated county commissioner. And I can tell you from the job, the RCWs are antiquated and state that it's a part-time position. It is not. Skamania County has actually done an ordinance and required their county commissioners to work full-time. So until we change that legislation or do our own ordinance, that's an open-end deal that someone could come in and do this position and actually not do the work. Starting as a county commissioner, they send you to elected training. At elected training in Olympia, they tell you from the beginning it's like drinking from a fire hose. And they were wrong, it's worse. I am an ADHD, incredible multitasker manager, and my first 2 months at work, I got dressed, went to work, and said, what am I doing, where am I going? And I would open a box, work on it for 15, 20 minutes, get something done, close the box, move to the next subject. We have 23 departments, 11 other electeds, almost 300 employees. Our jobs are probably 10% political and 90% running a large corporation. It's a very busy and very technical job when you get down to the paperwork, contracts, and everything that we have to review, understand, and handle. I think moving forward, I can say my biggest concerns are if there's a change. There are so many things, good things moving from our board that works well together now that are moving toward the people that we need to keep traction on. And to have a new commissioner try to catch up to speed would be very hard. Some of those things are set in stone already, and they would keep going. Others are personal projects or projects that this board is committed to. And if there's a change in decision or a change in direction that another person would like to go, it could destroy some of the work that we're doing. We actually have the comp plan moving. I have an appropriation bill with Senator King for a fire retardant lane to help with the firefighting here in the gorge. If we get that, that's a great asset, then these planes don't have to fly out of the valley to refuel with that retardant for 2 hours and then come back. We have a new budget development. We heard about budgets, and that was a problem for me to say when I came in, thinking, how do you just tell an agency which happened or department cut 20%? I don't think that's possible. So we instigated a new way under my watch that says bring your proposed budget in, but I want to see your proposal of what you might need to. I want to talk about that with the departments, and we have them come in and sit with us now and explain how they work, what they need, and then negotiate what we can do for them. I'm going to get cut off. My relationship with other counties is very important because we built those relationships in Seattle and the other areas in King County so that potentially we get their waste products eventually, which is a big funding source for our county under health services. And she's going to stop me. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy.
Well, I think my preparation started in 2024 when I made the crazy decision to try politics. During that 2024 state legislative run, I started to interact with folks that were involved in the county level politics and started to become more aware of how directly local policy and decisions at the county level can affect our lives, even more so in a positive or negative way than the state stuff. Like the state kind of hovers over the top and the fed's on top of that, but I learned a lot more during that 2024 state effort about what happens at the county level. And as I realized that I wanted to stay engaged in the politics because I felt called to it, if not me, then who? And so I watched, what was going on. And so I ran for the executive board for my local 1466 union and was elected as an executive board member in 2025. And then also joined the High Prairie Community Council in 2025 to get more involved at the local community. Besides the work I've been doing as a state employee, providing services and interacting with county workers and stuff and building relationships at the county departments and in the elected offices and whatnot. And then also, when I started kind of thinking about where I wanted to go with this in this next cycle, which is now 2026, I started auditing, via the Zoom or watching it, having been recorded later, what the county Board of Commissioners was up to from the online content that's available after they have their meetings. And then also, just when I did decide to jump into this to give the voters a choice, going to the community council meetings and interacting directly with community members, finding out what their issues are, whether it's Dallesport and its interest with their water and their parks, or Wishroom, and they're the only community on the river that doesn't have access to the river and speeds through Wishroom Heights, Klickitat, and unfinished portions of the Klickitat Trail. So hearing from the community, what are their needs, and then and just reaching out to folks at local community events, engaged a ton of people at the Home and Garden Show, and then also at the Bickleton Rodeo until I got all broken up and couldn't make it to Glenwood. So just beginning to reach out and reconnect with things like my community council and my executive board at the union level, and helping make decisions at those local levels, and getting ready to do that for the county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This next question is for the commissioners only, and we'll go ahead and start with Andy. It says here, we need a mosquito abatement plan in Dallesport. They're attacking us. Oh, no. And how do you feel about it, and what do you think we can do about it? Go ahead.
Mosquito abatement program. Well, as I ended my 20-year military reserve career in the Coast Guard, I did 14 as an officer in the Army National Guard, 6 as a maritime enforcement specialist with the United States Coast Guard. I ended with about a 5-month deployment to Minnesota, and I spent a ton of time on the Ontario-Minnesota border. There's a lot of mosquitoes in Minnesota. And the first time I was in Baudette, Minnesota, at about midnight, at a McDonald's after having driven half the evening and into the night from Duluth for this mission. I see this big tank truck going down the highway, and I'm looking outside, and it's spraying, and I'm like, what are they spraying out there for? So I asked the folks at the McDonald's, and they're like, oh, they're spraying for mosquitoes. You know, I held a public pesticide applicator's license for 10 years. As part of my natural resource management work, I was a licensed public pesticide applicator. Learned a lot about weeds, learned a lot about wood-boring insects and other things that destroy our trees and things like that. Mosquitoes, the best abatement plan that I've found so far is high-speed wind. All flights are grounded at Horse Thief when the wind is blowing. Yeah, that's an interesting question. You know, anytime you start using chemicals, you start changing the environment, and what's the negative impacts? Bats eat mosquitoes. We could implement a Dallesport community bat house program. Bats are a very effective mosquito abatement. They're naturally occurring, and I would encourage folks that have mosquito problems near their residential area, I encourage you to plant a bat box underneath the eaves of your house, out on the perimeter of your yard. They're great. And I also grew up on the west side where we had a lot of mosquitoes, and those bug zapper lights were pretty good, at least for your yard. But I'd be real hesitant to, look at spraying into the environment on that, but, it's certainly something I've done as a professional, herbicide applications, and decided to be an insecticide, a pesticide, so that'd be something to look at.
Anthony, a point here. I got these questions out of order. There's a lot more important questions to be answered.
Well, I understand.
My wife bitches about it too. There are a lot more important questions to be
Wow,
answered.
you're gonna have a tough time tonight when you go home.
That's a good comment.
Yeah, well, and I just want to remind everybody up here, you have 3 minutes. Doesn't mean you have to use all 3 minutes on every question. So anyway, Lori, you want to jump in on that one? Okay.
Thank you, Andy, but I am an anti-bat person. I deal with mosquitoes first, thank you. But it's an idea. We do have a weed control board at our county, and we have a man that deals with pesticides and sprays weeds. So I see no reason we couldn't bring that question forward to the county commissioners, and they could pose that to our weed control people and see maybe what the possibilities are. We also have a natural resource department employee here in Keaton Curtis that could help that weed board look into it and see what maybe we need, and then there'd be the issue of funding, that we would have to find the funding for that. Everything's a possibility. Thank you.
Okay, Gene.
Well, I was born in Minnesota and I lived there the first 12 years of my life, so I understand what he's talking about, mosquitoes. In 1978, we moved to Tri-Cities where they do have mosquito spray and keep them down. So with that, I never wanted to go back to Minnesota. So like Lori was saying, with the weed control and everything, I don't see where it wouldn't be too difficult to look into that. I bought property last year in Glenwood, has a pond on it, and yes, it's almost as bad as when I was a kid in Minnesota, but we do have a bat box, and it does help. So anyways, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next question will be for the sheriffs. And we will start with Dwayne. He's ready to write. Okay. What specific changes would you bring to our sheriff's department? It's very, yeah, this one here just talks about specific changes you would bring to our sheriff's department.
I already kind of touched on one of them. The other changes that I would probably bring back fairly quick and work on is the reserve program. I would really like to build up the reserve program because, like we've all mentioned, we don't have enough deputies on the road. Currently, we only have 2 reserves. I would really like to boost that up because that's qualified, trained law enforcement we can use to help to give the full-time law enforcement rest when they need it. So that would be one of the changes that I would make. So administration change, a better public information officer that puts out information that doesn't harm cases or re-victimize victims. I feel that's very important because we need to build the trust of the community, and the quickest way to do that is put too much information out there and however you want to look at it, shame someone for the worst day of their life. So those would be another thing that I would focus on. Those would be the specific changes that I would focus on right away.
Thank you. John?
So like Tony said, there's just so much to get accomplished, whether it's your first year or during your first term as the sheriff. But beyond trying to get additional deputies, then I think our next number one thing, because there's a lot of number one things, is to focus on having a good, strong administration, a good budgeting process that's transparent and something that we actually need and can work with. Additionally, it's about getting out and being seen in the community, all of the little communities within Klickitat County, and restoring trust in the sheriff's office. Talking with people, building those relationships, and what we get from that is something that we can work with the deputies to deliver the very best customer service that we can. Why? Because you're worth it.
Thank you. Tony?
It's always the advantage to go last, because I get to write down all the things I think.
Oh, you
like
should
they
have
get to
said
talk.
that. No.
Well, we all get our turns to go first, right? First year I talked about, or changes in the department, so yeah, adding some reserves would be great. I mean, they are helpful. I started the reserve on site for 10 years. It's a great program to have. Between Goldendale and the sheriff's department, they've been trying to do that. They weren't able to put together a class next year, or this year they tried to. They've been trying for several years and they haven't been able to make it happen. So I wonder where that's going to go. The state seems to frown on programs and requires a lot of certifications for us to be able to push those trainings. Of course, there's some expense to that too, as far as getting people through backgrounds and everything. Some other big things would be community policing. I want to see deputies involved in community events more. I'd like to bring back not a full SRO program, but have a deputy that's expected to go into a school for an hour a day. Just even even if it's one person that goes between Travel Lake and White Salmon, Klickitat, all the way to Roosevelt and Bickleton, he's just expected to spend an hour a day, meet with the staff, see if they're having any problems, and interact with the kids. Regaining and building that public trust, like we've heard a little bit, that's going to be important as well. We should be doing that. Of course, we've talked about adding personnel. With that, I mean, some additional trainings. I'd like to get to the point where deputies would have options to do even a week-long training in a field that they are interested in, not just the required stuff that they're always going to do. We've talked about that a little bit with them, and there may have to be sacrifices in one area to be able to afford that, but I would like to be able to offer those opportunities. Efficiency within our office and some training within our office. Our office staff, we hire them and they seem to lack some training in being able to efficiently do their job in public records requests and managing public records. So those are some of the big things.
Thank you very much. You've heard this side of the left-hand side of the table for me talk about budget. Well, guess what? The next question is for the commissioners, and we'll be talking budget. Starting in 2027, do any of you want to or plan to cut any budgets of any department within the county? If so, what department? We'll start with Lori, since she's the incumbent.
No, actually, we have set with our current board a 3-year budget plan to stay within the parameters of that budget until we can work through what's happening with the state, because the state is broke. No one's noticed. The cuts that we're getting from the state are incredible, and we get updates from our departments all the time for money they're losing. Just about 2 weeks ago, we lost $350,000 to our health department. But the good thing is we've had excellent department directors that knew this was coming. They've budgeted, they've given them some wiggle room to where they can continue the services to the people through this 3-year period of time that we feel it's going to take the state to get back on track. And also during that time, we're working hard to increase revenues. We just heard about a week ago that we've been successful, and our Comish contract for the landfill that we could have lost, we're in the running for that to come back to us again. That the city of Seattle is considering us for Republic Services. If that happens, we'll also bring in the city of Tacoma and possibly King County. If that happens, our budgets really, really become more stable and increase. Right now, we have a stable budget. We have good reserves. We don't touch those reserves. And we're able to work with those departments. We're not asking them to cut anything, but to bring their budget in status quo this year. And then also with that budget sheet I talked about, if you have something extra that you think you need, just like they were talking about the sheriff's department, let's have that hard discussion. It's our job to help figure out how to do this.
Thank you. Jean, you'll be next.
So with the 2027 budget, of course, it'll be in place, but no, I wouldn't want to cut anybody's budgets by any means. I know our department, the building department, we have all chipped in to help our shortfall, the people in our department. We have 5 people, and so a lot of us are chipping in and doing paperwork where instead of just one person. So that's just one example. I've been visiting other departments, and I've noticed everybody doing the same thing. That because everybody's aware of budget, nobody wants to be unemployed, so everybody's willing to step up and help one another wherever it's lacking, which I commend everybody under our building, both buildings, being able to do that. So with that, I think it's great, the employees that we have there that are willing to do that, just to try to help pick up the slack and help the community, the people of the county. So, thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
As Lori said, I learned a little bit about the 3-year plan that the county commissioners have currently adopted, and without seeing the revenue forecasts, I think it would be premature to just start talking about making cuts. I know the budget process is something that they're going to be engaging in heavily, I think through August, September, coming up with the 2027 budget. But as a state employee, having been through more ups and downs and budget cuts, I understand, my agency, when you compress the part-time employees or the seasonal employees in 2 6-month positions equals one full-time FTE. We're about twice as big as the county staff, and I've been through a couple of cycles where a lot of people got laid off. And with my experience with government, our costs are usually about 70% is our personnel, and about 30% is all the other stuff. And people are our biggest resource. And if you cut them and then you got to hire them back later, recruiting, retaining, and retraining is tough to do. So I think just operating within the budget and following the course on the 3-year plan that they've started, and then monitoring how the revenue coming in, I think it's premature to talk about making cuts before we even know what the revenue forecasts are even looking like.
All right, go ahead and stand up again. This question is a little bit about we already talked about the data centers, but as far as the data centers go, we know what you said your opinion is on it. What we're looking at now, the question is, and what will you do to ensure that the community's water and electric rates are not impacted?
Well, we've got to see one to know what it's going to do, but as I said, these things, one, I'd like to see if a planner that no longer works for the county and a planning commission that's probably got some different composition than the other one. If it's not too late, since there are no data centers yet or even any applications for them, to revisit that opinion if it's light industrial or not and have another review of that. I'm not sure what the legal standing of that is. How is that written in stone? I don't know. I'd like to look into that, and that's something I will be looking into is, we see that with precedents even in our Supreme Court, that a decision 100 years ago in the light of different circumstances, sometimes they change. So I'd like to see that, but if and when they do come, they, whatever control the county can have in its zoning and permit requirements is they should have their own water, they should have their own power supplies that come with them. And I would do everything that I can to ensure that the permits require those things.
Thank you. Lori?
Where we get our advantage is when it does move into the planning phase, and we have a very robust planning through the state requirements and also through the county policies. And once they lay down that application, it heads them towards an EA or EIS, and that's an environmental impact statement. And that's a very lengthy project. I think you all heard about the Carringer Solar that kind of slipped through on Knight Road and became a very big controversy. And they ran to FSEC thinking that they could get out of their consequences with us and be handed a permit, and that wasn't true. The state held them to that fire. It's been over 2 years now, and they're not through those processes yet. It's not approved. I don't know if it will be approved. The data centers got even worse recently as they moved them out of the green energy sector and put them in a data center light industrial look. So that green energy through Governor Inslee got a lot of passes, and that really hurt the county. It hurt the county for environmentally, and it hurt the county for tax base. That's not going to happen with the data centers. The state has more requirements for them now, which benefits us. That helps us. So I think we have good processes in place. I believe in our planner, Scott Edelman. I think he'll do a good job. He's worked with this before, and we will get to review every document that comes through as well as the planning commission.
So, research I've been doing on the data centers, they can't get their power from BPA, so they have to provide their own power. So which means they can either get it through natural gas, using natural gas generators, or mini reactors, or find their power somewhere else. And my understanding, just got an email today that I was reading, that the storage power is most likely, if and when they file for the permitting for the data center down there at the aluminum plant, is going to probably provide the power for that, from what I'm reading and what's being proposed. Talking to economic development, there's water rights that are already in place from the aluminum plant that they can access the water from the river from there. My understanding with the one that's just being talked about in Dallesport, because of the orchards, there's water rights that they can pull out of the river there as well. But right now, all I've done is, because I'm working 40, 45 hours a week, when I'm done after work, I'm trying to stay up late, follow up, and do the research on the data centers, because it does seem to be a pretty hot topic. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go back to the sheriff's side again, and this time we'll start with Tony. Briefly describe the largest budget you have built and implemented in your prior service. Include discussions where the budget was most difficult to meet.
The largest budget I've ever managed, is that what we're getting at?
Have built and implemented, yes.
Yeah, nothing significant. I mean, honestly, nothing significant. Through like firearms programs, we get a small budget. We work within that. I mean, Wayne used to do that too. I remember budgeting from my college classes as one of my more fun classes where we can shift things around. I like that. So I don't have a whole lot of experience with large budgets, but it's about numbers and having people that can manage them and having cooperation from other agencies to help in those areas that I don't know. And I don't see that the budget being a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Largest budget is going to be Frisco, Texas. When I left there in 19, I believe our budget was $84 million. We had total employees of 316 sworn officers and 16 sworn officers and 115 professional staff. We were one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. The problem with the budgeting is really trying to keep up with the number of bodies that you need in all of the different positions. Because in the budgeting world, when the councils or the board of commissioners approve a budgeted position, it might take you up to 2 years to hire a sworn officer to fill that position. And if they're a lateral, already coming trained, that's great. But if they have to go to the academy and through the full field training program, then you're going to lose them for almost a year before they're out there as a solo road deputy. So that's my experience with budgeting.
So my experience with budgeting is much like Tony. Being in the firearms side, we had a very minimal budget, ordering supplies, making sure we had enough ammo to do the training. And when we didn't, we had to be very creative. That's where I would actually like to make a change in this small department, because Tony can attest to this, you don't get those opportunities in a small department to have that opportunity to be part of the budget. And I think it'd be really important that the future deputies going forward have that opportunity and get to experience it. So when they get this question, they have a much better answer than Tony. Thank you.
Thank you.
I forgot a couple things in there.
We're back into the commissioner's side. The question is there a candidate or incumbent who will do what is best for the citizens of Klickitat County rather than special interest groups or friends? We'll start with Andy.
That's kind of a lot of prongs there. Try that one again.
This is for the commissioners. Is there a candidate or incumbent, I don't know why it was separated, who will do what is best for the citizens of Klickitat County rather than special interest groups or friends?
Well, of course, the answer is myself. Of course, I'm the one who's not going to do that. Yeah, I've been in public service since I took my first oath to the Constitution as a contracted ROTC cadet in 1988. I've been under an oath to serve citizens of the country, the state, my community, or my union brothers and sisters for over 38 years. And my decision to run for county commissioner, I'd like to go fishing, I'd like to retire, but I'm doing this for the people of the county, not for anybody that I know that has some other secondary interest or some other benefit. It's for the benefit of the citizens of this county. I want to finish over 40 years of public service, giving back to the county. After I've given 38 years to all the other entities from the nation to the local community, I want to give back to the county. And that's what I'm in it for. Thank you.
Lori?
Well, I'll be like Andy and say myself first. I think I can attest for the hours that I've put into this job, 7 days a week. My husband can attest to that. I don't cook anymore. And my house is a mess that I can't even stand, but the work comes first. It's unending and there's so much to do. I can say for the other candidates running that I would like to think that there isn't anybody running for any position at this time that isn't dedicated to the county and these citizens. I think they do put themselves out there to help and they really mean well. But I can also tell you, if you get into a position like this and think that you're going to do something special for somebody, there's nothing secret, there's nothing quiet. The truth always comes out. There's a paper trail to everything, and you will get accused on Zoom, or you will get accused in the newspaper, and you'll have to answer for your actions. So, but I'd like to say I think everybody's a fairly caring, honest person that's running for office.
Thank you. Gene?
Sorry. Yeah, I guess, me, anyways, as the inspector, just working both ends of the county, east of west, county's probably 110 miles long and 30 miles deep. In the last 10 years, I've covered both ends, dealing with people. People continually ask me, especially this time of year, if I want water or something to drink, and I will say no, because I don't want it to seem like I'm taking something. So I guess it's, and like Lori said, and I agree, everybody who's running has the county's interest at heart. And I think that's the most important when everybody out here is looking at us, that we may have a different way to get there, but ultimately, I think we just want what's best and to continue on what the last many years everybody else has enjoyed. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to the sheriff's this time. And the question is, generally describe the largest single law enforcement incident you have had to command. Was the incident command system implemented? And if so, what was your role in the ICS? And we'll start with John.
March of 2019, Frisco, Texas. I was speaking as the guest speaker to a police academy graduation, and I started seeing other command staff of my own agency and other agencies whispering back and forth, and then I started seeing them disappear. So I finished my speech, then I got my briefing. A state trooper had just been shot in our city, and now we had a standoff in a high-rise condo. The situation began, I think it was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We did create the incident command structure, and as I finished up graduation, shook everybody's hand. My place was at the command center, the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center. From there, I was getting feedbacks from the troops that were actually on the scene. I had an assistant chief that was present on scene at all times. And this incident did not resolve itself until about 6 o'clock the next morning. We went through the night. We had a lot of help. Although Frisco was a large city at that time, it still took multiple tactical teams from other areas to facilitate. To include a great response by Denton County Fire Departments, had a great drone program, and they were able to fly a drone through the window and get a look inside of the condominium. And that was crucial because the Plano, Texas bomb squad was about to do an explosive entry, and what they had built would not have worked for the type of barricading that the subject had done on the inside. But ultimately, it was able to peacefully bring itself to resolution. The person was taken into custody and ultimately prosecuted for his heinous crime against a peace officer.
Thank you. Tony?
And John, that's one of those incidents we never want to mention. That's off to you for that. A few of the larger incidents we've had happen in the last year. It's been a little busier for Klickitat County than normal. More recently, search warrant one night that turned into a manhunt the next day. That involved a lot of resources. It's kind of different when you're sitting back just watching everybody else do it and trying to make sure everybody has the resources they need, from evidence collection kits to personnel, safety, and make sure they're even fed. These things seem to go on for hours on end. It's kind of fun. It really is. So that incident rolled into that manhunt the next day that many of us have heard about on Sadis there up 97, which turned into almost everybody from our department participating, as well as State Patrol, State Parks. Our posse came out to help. 25 to 30 U.S. Marshals with multiple canine teams and drone teams. So that's something I've been fortunate enough to take part in recently. We had another incident in BZ a few weeks before that. Again, just kind of overseeing that. And then the Burgoyne fire last year, that was kind of a bigger one. I was supposed to be on vacation that week. Canceled vacation to go work that fire as much as we could. Carmen Knopf, the undersheriff, and I camped out in Lyle, basically. I took my own RV down there to the trailhead. And we learned a lot from that, and while there's things we could improve on, I mean, we were there for the community trying to meet their needs. Those are my situations, thank you.
Dwayne?
As my time as a deputy, I was incident commander for search and rescue, so there was a lot of different missions that we went on, for recoveries and obviously rescues. One that came to mind was at the falls up out of Glenwood. 2 people jumped off and they broke their legs, badly injured, and we had 2 rescues at the same time. I was an incident commander, and it was really hard for me to oversee everything and just not want to jump in there. And I think that's probably the hardest thing, being in those positions, because you had ropes. It took hours to get just one person out, and we had to call in additional resources, which we called in the Coast Guard. They brought a chopper in, which was amazing. They dropped a chopper down inside the canyon. That pilot, breathtaking. The fact that he could do that, I never got to meet the pilot. But we had to get that last person out and to make those decisions to get them out as quickly as due to their injuries. Because it took 4 hours for ropes. We had to wait for the chopper. So that was one that kind of gets there. Not being able to just jump right in there. A lot of times I was field operations, and we had a call out before I left. I came back from state traffic with my daughter, just got home. It was 11 o'clock at night, and the sergeant called me out and said, "Hey, I need to do one last thing." So he had me come out and run the field operations when we had a standoff out on the road, and we had to wait for the SWAT team to come in. So I had to make sure that we kept perimeter. So things like that is often I've heard that did, but that's obviously more hands-on. But I would say the hardest thing is when we can't be hands-on, and it's just very difficult.
Okay. The next one's for the sheriffs also. What has been your stance on hiring FBI? And did they qualify what that was? Because it wasn't our FBI, it was friends, brothers, sisters, and in-laws FBI. Okay, so Tony, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, threw me off there for a second.
Me too.
So, I mean, there's some rules around that as far as who we can hire or whatever, as far as nepotism goes, family and whatnot. Yeah, I mean, if they're qualified for the position, they're qualified for the position. If they're a good fit, they're a good fit. But you got to be careful with who you're bringing in. I mean, I definitely don't have any friends or family I want to get in there. So I don't have a whole lot to say on that subject, I guess.
Thank you very much. John?
Well, I've been fortunate that the agencies I work for did have a strong nepotism policy. And so we did not hire FBI using this definition because, it creates problems. And I also saw it on the other end, on the discipline side, when I had to take action against a senior officer because his daughter, who did not work for us, married one of our jailers, and neither one of them reported it, and it became an issue, and having to get involved with human resources and work our way through that. He would have been promoted sergeant at the next promotional process because he was the next person on the list. But because of the nepotism that existed, he had to be passed over, unfortunately.
Friends, brothers, or in-laws. I know my brother wouldn't want to be in law enforcement, so that's out. In-laws, nepotism is definitely an issue, and it's one of the reasons why I don't work in White Salmon. My cousin is the chief of police, so I can't work there. And I respect that, and he wouldn't be able to work for the sheriff's office either. if I was in charge of him. There are situations like it was brought up, people get married or the dating. As long as it's up front, there's policies to follow, and they can never be in charge of each other. There's obviously issues there. But again, if it's a friend that is qualified, you can do it, but you do put yourself in a bad situation if you ever do have to do discipline. So I guess if you're strong enough to just say, no, you did something wrong, you can't do it, then you have to be that person. But again, there's policies to follow, so what they are is what we follow.
Okay, well, don't sit down too quick. This is the first one that I've gotten to a specific candidate, Dwayne, that had your name on it. Do you believe there is a challenge to our Second Amendment right to bear arms?
What do you mean?
You're asking me. I didn't write the question, but it says, do you believe there is a challenge to our Second Amendment right to bear arms? And why they singled you out and have no idea. And it's not signed, so I can't put them on the spot.
I may not completely understand the question, so maybe after the meeting someone could talk to me about it. But no, the Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. I think it's very clear.
Thank you. Okay, we don't have that many questions left, I don't believe, but would you guys like a 10-minute break?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and well, this one's the commissioners. We'll start out with them. We'll start out with Gene. Gene will be first. In a dry community with limited rainfall, what is your position on allowing water-intensive industry, especially in this agricultural community? You guys all get that? Do I have to reread it?
Yeah, read it again.
In a dry community with limited rainfall, what is your position on allowing water-intensive industry, especially in this agricultural community?
I'm kind of interpreting that that's probably like a data center, possibly?
Yeah. It wasn't specifically answered that, or asked that.
I know. Where I grew up in Tri-Cities, we had the irrigation district. So I understood a dry community with the water going to the farmers and agriculture and everything. Let's see, not really too up to speed on our area. I'm assuming, like with the orchards, the water rights coming from the river, is probably where they're going to get their water. So anyways, I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay, Lori.
Well, Klickitat County was born with agriculture. That's where we came from, that's who we are. And it's been a fight to preserve that with the transition that's coming from the west towards the east. The county has those concerns. One of the things I've asked for is to reinstigate our natural resource department and have them do a natural resource inventory so that we know who is out there that's farming, who is still in ag, who is still in timber, and then how can we best protect that as we move forward with the comp plan. So that's one thing that we're working on. We also have an ordinance that is still on the books, and it's called the Right to Farm Ordinance. And Klickitat County is an agricultural county, and we're trying to preserve it and keep that heritage there. And I think the best way to do that, again, is qualifying everyone under the permit system. And something about the permit systems that you have to understand, too, they aren't just at our county. We route them, and they go through all the state agencies and the tribes, and they get their first crack at it, too, and send back all their information to us. so we can qualify or disqualify those applications.
Okay, Andy.
Well, as I previously mentioned, my well that had about 12, 13 years ago, it still produces water, but the water it produces is so acidic it ate the brass fittings in my house. Wells up in High Prairie are 400 to 600 feet deep, and some deeper, as I understand it. You just use an average of $100 a foot. When I had the water purification specialist come out and test my water, he said 30 years of water purification was the worst water he ever tested. Asked him how much it would cost to fix my water purification system I put in for about $5 grand. He said, drill a new hole. And I said, I could go over there 1,000 feet, drill a new hole, and who says I don't hit the exact same stuff, or I drill a dry hole. There's a volunteer well monitoring program up in High Prairie. I don't recall how many participants are in that, but some of the testing that I've heard they've done on some of those wells at the aquifer in High Prairie in particular, because of the fault line that's over on the east end of Swale Canyon and the Klickitat Canyon on the other side, and all we have is the north slope of the Columbia Hill ridge line and what lands right on the prairie. Some of the water they're pumping out of the ground in some of those private domestic wells has been in the ground for 5,000 years. That's how long it can take that aquifer to recharge. So dropping down into some of these other areas, these basalt layers and things, I think when you add a water-intensive industrial consumption of the water, it's tough to see what's going on underground. And I think it puts domestic system, or municipal systems like the Dallesport wells or any other community that's on a community well system, it puts the water source at risk, and you could have, last thing you want is 400 houses with the same problem mine has. So we have to be very, very guarded and precious with our water source and use.
Thank you. This one will be for the sheriffs. And we'll start with Dwayne. What is your opinion on utilizing a posse within law enforcement? And just to give you a little footnote, I'm a captain for the West Side Posse, and there's a lot of posse members in here.
I am a fan of volunteer, though. Obviously, I brought up the reserve program, which is volunteer. But I think there needs to be a distinct difference between law enforcement and volunteers. There are so many different ways you can go with the volunteer program. Something that was introduced to me recently. Is that better back there? Recently is, it's called a Civilian Emergency Response Team, CERT. And I think that would be the direction I would go with the posse. So we have numbers ready for the emergency response that we have in this area. The fires, we're due for an earthquake, we're due for floods, and have people specifically trained for that. That would be something I'd want to broaden the horizon with the posse. The other part with the posse is I'm big, support is fine. Just don't want it looking like law enforcement. That's my biggest drawback to it. And it looks like, depending on how the bill goes, that might be gone anyway. Yeah, I think I answered that. I don't want to look like law enforcement. I do want them out there doing support roles and broadening the training and education they can have to further help the community. I like the volunteers too.
John.
I support the use of a posse member of the team itself. So I started going to the posse trainings, not all of them, but with that, I learned a lot about how they're structured. I learned a lot about what they're teaching themselves. They talk a lot about the fact that they're not law enforcement officers, and that's a really good distinction that they have. I do agree that their uniforms need to be more distinct than what they are from a deputy's uniform. That would be consistent with best practices across the nation. There is a standard within most accrediting bodies that have, if volunteers wear a uniform that they are distinct from sworn. I would make sure that their policy and procedures are following best practices and that we train for those kinds of things. But we cannot police your county without the use of volunteers. Can't be done. We need the volunteers to be our eyes and ears and to assist us in those things that could be handled by someone that's not a law enforcement officer and can take that duty off of the law enforcement officers so that they can go do the law things that they need to accomplish. So I would keep them and just make a few tweaks here and there. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
First and foremost, to the posse members in here, thank you for your volunteering. I think the posse program is great. I greatly appreciate the volunteerism of them. It's great to have the volunteers that will come out and help us in situations. And like you heard, yes, we can free up a deputy to go do something else. Some of those situations that you guys assist with are traffic control, security at events, beer gardens, sometimes even crime scene security. We'll call out just have an extra set of eyes out there. Now we don't have to have so many deputies. I've been to some of the meetings, I've seen some of the trainings. One thing I like to bring up is the first aid training they have. It's someone that seems to be in excess of what I've had as a deputy. And I try to remind the community that there are additional members that are trained with communications, obviously the first aid, and they might be right behind you when you have a car crash or emergency incident where you need help. Yes, we need to make sure the posse is not law enforcement. I think you all know that. In talking to various communities, I don't hear a whole lot of complaints about the posse, really. As much as I would have expected some more, even on the west side or the left side of the county. Not so much. Some of the complaints are that some do behave as law enforcement or do have that image and they act that way. And a lot of that is probably just an independent or a particular incident where somebody said something or did something that they didn't like. So I think with the image is going to come community education. As far as uniforms and how they look, I mean, most of the time posse is wearing a white uniform, the badge says posse on the side. Education of the public. This is a deputy, this is a posse. It might be as simple as that. We all know the mall cop's not a cop. So we can all get on board with the posse not being a cop. So I do support that program moving forward and potentially being utilized in other areas to help us out. And there would be some changes. A lot of agencies like CERT, we heard mentioned, COP, various programs out there that cities and sheriff's departments utilize for volunteers. Sometimes they just have a different name that may be more palatable to some people. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is for the commissioners. Who should own and control the Dallesport wastewater system? How would you help that to happen? We're going to start with Lori.
The Dallesport wastewater treatment by law has to be held by a wastewater treatment operator who is certified and approved by the state. Right now, Klickitat County, because we built it, owns the wastewater treatment plant and it's managed by the Klickitat PUD. If the county decides they do not want to be the owner any longer, we can't just dispose of property under a legal process by the treasurer. We're required to put it out for bid. And if that happens, those bids could only be bid on by a licensed operator that is licensed by the Department of Ecology and set up. That means they have to be licensed to have proper staff with the state as long as they say how many employees you have to manage that properly, have all the equipment, have the bonding, and have the insurance before they could file the application for an RFP.
Gene.
Sorry. Can you tell I'm winging it? No. Sorry. Let's see, wastewater treatment. No, I'm not gonna stand over here for very good, I promise I'm sweet. I was talking to somebody on Monday about the wastewater treatment, and how it does belong to the county, how it is, through the PUD, that it does manage it. From my understanding, they do well. But I understand that people of Dallesport also would like to take control of it someday. With that, like Lori was saying, you know, somebody being certified and whatever, but then let's say, as you would move into that direction, to take over that, is how it was explained to me. It would be more of your financial responsibility. And I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy?
Who should own it? As Lori said, right now it's owned by the county. Right now, the community of Dallesport is not incorporated. I have to look into, as the community council for Dallesport operates under the county commission. I'm not sure if the community wanted to merge the water system and the sewer and create a utility district for the community. But again, it would have to be acquired and bid on to operate and purchase it. If that's what the community wanted to do, you know, that's what the community could pursue, whether it's unincorporated or incorporated. I think until such time as the community does or doesn't want to take it, I think holding and owning the wastewater treatment plant by the county and contracting the operation as it is now is the right way to do it. Kind of like the county's holding it in trust for the community until the community either grows large enough and wants to move toward combining the water and sewer into a utility district that the community could manage and benefit its utility district through the hookup fees and things like that to help fund and perpetuate that program. But that really lies in what's the community's desire. And I think it's the right thing to do for the county to hold it in trust until such time. Thank you.
Here. Thank you. But now that you guys brought that up, I moved a question up. So it's for the commissioners. Dallesport is nearing the population to be eligible for incorporation. Would you support that? And how would the VOCC and the county help in that process? And we'll start. Sure, Laurie will start.
Thank you.
Jean's going, oh my God, thank you.
The county is looking forward to the day that Dallesport can grow and become their own community. We only have 3 incorporated communities in this county, White Salmon, Bingen, and Goldendale. So as that, we have to take care of all the other unincorporated communities. And you can imagine the work and the burden that is on our budget. It costs a lot to take care of the infrastructure, the roads, and everything that each community needs. Let alone look for special needs and wants that they'd like to have, like community centers and parks and things that they'd like to have funded. It takes a big budget to do that. I can say we would support you any way we can. I know we had conversations with Dallesport Community Council in the last few years, and I suggested that they reach out to White Salmon and other communities and say, what does that look like? How does that work for you? How do you become an incorporated city? And what are we facing when we do that? But we would be here to stand behind you and help with whatever you need to move you forward into that phase of Dallesport community.
Thank you. Andy, go ahead.
Yes, I support Dallesport incorporating. As I mentioned in previous questions, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing for the county. I think it's a good thing for the community. Which anytime you can control something yourself, it's better. Better for you and better for your citizens. So, like Lori said, if elected to the Board of County Commissioners, I would support doing anything that the county can do to help facilitate the community taking the reins and taking the wheel of their own destiny. Thanks.
Thank you. Gene? That's fine.
As a person who's spent a great deal of time down here in Dallesport the last 10 years, watching the community grow the way it has. Many houses I've filed, the development currently, watching the growth has been very exciting for be part of the community. It's very similar to the community that I grew up in Tri-Cities. As far as the young couples moving in and the retired people, I mean, those were my best memories. So when I started working here and coming down here, I think it's a great community, and I think it would be, you know, it's something that Dallesport wanted to pursue as a commissioner. I would definitely try to help pave that way.
Thank you. Okay, sheriffs. I have two that I'm going to combine because they're kind of close together. So each of you previously left a law enforcement agency. With that, would you be hired back? And if not, would you do something different with your departure? And I'm going to add to that, do all of you qualify for the new state law to hold the position of sheriff? And we're going to start with Tony.
Yes, and thank you. So, I guess I've left two departments between Skamania and White Sand. So,
It's not a race or anything.
which one do we want to talk about first?
It's up to you.
So White Salmon, I left there in 2019. I made the decision at that time for my family that that was the best thing to do. I'm not infallible. I'll admit to everyone here that I made mistakes in that, and I know where these questions are going and what people are seeking. So I thought of my kids mostly and made the decision to leave. We're talking 2019, right? The economy was still good, yeah. I had a business that I ran on the side. I still have that business. I did dump trucking and excavation. That went really well until COVID. COVID slowed that down. Then I started thinking about business and retirement and where do we go in the future. So I was working for the PUD out of the gas plant by the landfill. Looking at going full-time there, a great paying job. Now we're getting into April, May of 2021, right as the state was starting to go through their police reform bills. I decided to come back for a job with a salary that was about half the possibility I would have had there. But law enforcement's in my blood. I came back. No issues in my history or anything that I've ever done that obviously prevented me from coming back. Background, polygraph, site. Nothing in the new sheriff's bill that was concerning to me. Didn't have any issues with that. I mean, I have issues with the bill because I don't think Olympia should be telling you who you can and can't vote for as sheriff. I have no problem fighting against those bills, but for my history, there was nothing in that bill that would have been concerning to me. Thank you.
Thank you. John.
So as I've stated, yes, I have left 3 agencies. The first agency I left after almost 10 years to better the opportunity I had for growth in this industry and went next door to Frisco, Texas. I left Frisco as the chief of police after almost 7 years to take the chief's job in Richland. To answer the last part of the question as it relates to those first 2 agencies, yes, I would be able to go back to work there if I so chose to. Richland, I was hired under one city manager. There was a change of city managers, and it is their prerogative to put their people into play. I was asked to leave by the city manager. He set the deadline for when he wanted me out of the office. The news broke on a Tuesday. I was packed up and out of the office on a Friday. I did nothing wrong. You can talk to Human Resources. Lacey Paulson is the director, and she would confirm that. Thank you.
What about with the
Yes.
new state law?
That part of the law has been struck down presently. However, there is nothing in my background that isn't already public that would prevent me from being the next sheriff.
Thank you. Dwayne.
So I've left 3 departments. The first department was Vineyard White Police Department. I left because I got married and my wife's family was in Goldendale, so that's where our babysitter's at. So there was a lateral position that came open, and I went to Goldendale. I stayed with Goldendale. Towards the end, I was doing a lot of programs to keep my job because they were having some budget issues. And I had a family, I had to think about them. I started testing around. The closest one where I could stay in Goldendale, but I didn't want to move, was Klickitat County. With Klickitat County, there are various reasons why I decided to leave. The biggest one, I just didn't feel like there was going to be any growth for me. There was sergeants have been there for eons. And I wanted those leadership things. I wanted to challenge myself. And I left, went to the railroad, and I have. I went right through the ranks, got a lot of training. And again, I actually had more time with my family at the railroad, surprisingly, than I did when I was on for, because I am a workaholic. And my wife will attest to that. I always took the shifts. I always came in, just like Tony mentions, it's 24/7. And as far as me building, there's nothing in my background that would keep me from holding the job. Tony, I don't agree with some of you telling me certain things, but there's nothing that I couldn't pass or hurt me. That's true. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next questions for the commissioners. As an unincorporated community, we rely on the county for our services and governance. How can the BOCC do a better job of directing resources to Dallesport, and what might those be? We're going to start with Gene. You want to read the card?
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we have a pass. Andy.
As the county supports the unincorporated communities, and as was already discussed, we only have 3 incorporated communities in the county, and none of them are in District 2. So how does the county apportion the resources it doles out to Klickitat and Glenwood and Lyle and Wishran and Dallesport and Centerville? I've been working for the state for 33 years, and oftentimes I see state government in my experience. Just everybody gets the same. You're gonna spread the peanut butter the same everywhere. And one size fits all is not necessarily the right response. So as the budget's looked at each year, I think it would be important to reach out to those communities, find out what those communities' needs are, have the Public Works Department do an assessment of the roads in each of those communities, traffic signs, and all those different things that community needs and uses on a day-to-day basis, and then use a priorities matrix of, where do those issues that they need resolved rank, with health and safety issues being first, and then moving down to the ancillary benefits of a community, like parks or street lights on later or street lights dimmed, different things, whatever the community's interests and needs and wants are. So I think having that annual reach out to the communities to search for their priorities and then get together and assess those and prioritize them. So that, one community one year might get more than the same percentage as another community based on the criticality of the needs that community has. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori?
Oh, for long term, we have supported the community of Dallesport, and back in the day, if some of you were in the room, you'll remember when Republic Services or Banco came in, we had a program that you could come in once a year in January and apply for funds that were set aside for the communities, and that happened with Dallesport. A lot of your community items came through that and were paid for by the county through Public Services, including ambulances and help building up your fire departments. Over time, as budgets rose and revenues went down, that program was extinguished. They switched to a program where they gave each commissioner $10,000 a year to apply to their district in the way they chose. And before I came into being, they extinguished that program. So with dwindling budgets, we've had cutbacks on what we can give out just randomly. But we do hear from the community of Dallesport regularly. They're great participants. We hear from them. I don't always hear from the other communities as often as we hear from Dallesport. We do respond through Public Works and through other departments to issues that are brought to our light. We repair situations or take care of them as quick as possible. And Public Works has been very responsive to the community of Dallesport. You have one of the only Klickitat County unincorporated cities, one of the only community centers that you use free of charge from the county. And to date, from 2022 to 2026, our Public Works has put in almost $150,000 into the Dallesport community for upgrades and repairs to this building and other issues, including new bathrooms upon request, wiring a new stove in. All of those things are great and Public Works and friendly, but each time they're down here working, it is charged to the taxpayer, not just the Dallesport taxpayers and taxpayers who are. So I think it's been very, very beneficial for Dallesport with your relationship with the county. I know there are people that are unhappy and we hear negative, but I feel we've done really well in Dallesport. In fact, if some of the other communities heard what you have received, we would have a problem. They do not have, and I hope nobody's in this room, they do not have community centers like we do. We've been responsive to your request for a park and recognize that. It's in the works, and they're working on park plans and working on updating our planning department to include that in the comprehensive plan. So things are slow sometimes, but they move forward.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going back to the sheriffs. More staff in the department is clearly a need. Should the budget be available, what ideas do you have to attract and retain the best talent? We'll start with Tony.
I feel like that's the first question I wrote now. But that's fine.
Do you feel like I'm picking on you? Is that what it is?
Not at all, I was happy about it. Attracting and retaining personnel. I look at that as a long-term thing, right? 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Making sure we're interacting with communities to get people interested in the job. Getting the youth interested, bringing them up. Community members that we hire are going to be more likely to stay in the community and not lateral to another department for more money. That's huge. Retention. A supportive administration is going to keep a lot of people. Deputies that know their admin has their back are going to be happier. Deputies that get the training, like we talked about earlier, getting even that week of training or whatever they want. That's a break from their daily routine. It's downtime for them. Shows them they're valuable because they're getting something they want. So that ongoing deputy support, that was one of the key things I brought up at the beginning, that's important for me, making sure they get their time off, making sure they're appreciated, making sure they get their training, they're compensated appropriately, and I'm happy to fight for that for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
Retention and attracting police officers it's a tough call, and it is a problem nationwide. But one of the keys is developing a culture that people want to come to work for. Part of developing that culture is getting your story out. That's one of the things that law enforcement does poorly, historically speaking, and that's telling our story about who we are, what we stand for. And so it's about creating this culture where people feel safe working, and it's about getting people involved at the agency level, because that's our best recruiters, are the people that already work here. They're telling their FBI buddies, their friends, brother-in-laws, and in-laws, but the ones that are qualified and that can pass a background, a psychological, medical, all of those kinds of things, we do want. But recruiting from internally is the best practice for who our recruiters are, because they know what it is to work here and how to share that information. It's about getting people excited about coming to work here. It's about giving them opportunities to go on a ride along with the officers so that they can see, what they might be getting into. Because occasionally you'll go through the entire process, even send somebody to the police academy and get them partly through field training, and they go, I don't think this is really for me. And we've invested a lot of time and energy. People are our number one expense of our budget, and we have to manage that and manage our people well. But it's about, once again, creating that culture and telling our story.
Thank you. Wayne?
So, something that maybe Tony can attest to is when I worked at the sheriff's office, one of the things that I like doing is making it a team, making it fun. We'd always challenge each other, and we called it the A-team. It was kind of a joke. But we would have barbecues, we would have get-togethers, so we could, like Tony brought up, decompress. Have that time to step back, because law enforcement is probably not invited to all the parties, right? So that's what we brought in. That's what I tried to make that family environment, basically. And that's where I feel that we can get that retention, because everybody wanted to be a part of that, and it needs to be brought. And from the training I recently had, the A-team probably wouldn't have been a good idea, because you're building a silo within a department. We were very high performers. We were go-getters, right? That's what I came up with 18. So now I see it needs to be an entire department. Get everybody involved. And that's where I would go in that process. But the other part, we brought up earlier, is getting into the schools. A school resource officer, that'd be great, but just getting back into the schools, my best memories and what actually got me involved in law enforcement and being a first responder was volunteers taking their time to come help coach. They showed up, it changed my opinion, and that's what we need to do. We need to change a culture to get us looked at us as we're not the bad guy, because the public, the media has kind of demonized us in a lot of ways, and we need to start breaking those walls. And that would be the focus that I would try to do, is changing a culture within our community, because we do need people from our community, because they're more likely to stay here, and then we have the attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm sure that everybody likes what I'm going to say next. This is the last question. And it's gonna be asked of all candidates, and we're gonna start and go from my right to the left. So Andy, you're up first. The question is, now that we have heard from all of you on many topics, why are you the better candidate who deserves our vote?
In my 30-plus years in public service, I've been a wildland firefighter, I've been a public pesticide applicator, I've been a law enforcement officer, I've been a tank commander, I've been a maritime enforcement specialist, and in all those roles, I've served as a personnel officer for a battalion, as a captain or a lieutenant promotable, became a captain and had a company command with 100 soldiers, responsible for all that they did, managing the personnel, managing the training budget, equipment budget, things like that. And the relationships I've built in those 30-plus years of public service across all the government levels throughout the Columbia Gorge that the county interacts with, the federal government, the tribal governments, the local governments, and the state government agencies. The planning and exercises that I've participated in have given me a unique ability to analyze problems, solve problems, and it's something that I really thrive on doing is maximizing our state, our taxpayer dollars. Anytime that I can solve a problem and save the state or the community or citizen money, I'm the kid of some parents that grew up in the Great Depression, and I treat every dollar I'm trusted with like it's my dollar, and it's going to get the best bang for the buck. And then when I approach a problem, I look at the pros and the cons, and have contingency plans. It's just in my DNA from the time that I began training to become an officer. I've worked in emergency operation centers. And one of the terms we use in the military in ground forces is force multiplier. And having the ability to build those relationships and maximize the value and benefit of all the departments and agencies and get them working together to save tax dollars and be efficient. I think I bring a unique set of skills that I can provide insights and help shape the way that the board makes decisions. My law and justice degree and 30-plus years in law enforcement, when the board needs to make ordinances or evaluate policies, I have the background, skill, and abilities and experiences to really provide a lot of benefit to the board and to the people of this county. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you haven't realized this is actually going to be it's a two-part question, but it's also your final 3-minute thing. So you did really well.
That was my closing statement as well? Okay.
Well, yeah, I was just saying,
right.
it kind of reads that way. What
Vote for me.
makes you the better candidate who deserves our vote? If you can't, So I just wanted to clarify that for the rest of you, but you did a fantastic job.
All right.
Lori, go ahead.
Gosh, I'm glad to know it was my closing. Thank you. In closing, I have proven through accomplishment and dedication to the county countless hours that I can handle this position. I have a VOCC that is working well together, and we have a lot more to accomplish together. And I'm asking for your vote to help me go forward into the next 4 years to accomplish what we've started. I'd just like to say that when you think about a county commissioner, please remember that it's very important that this position requires a high level of first-hand knowledge of many, many subjects and departments. It is the top executive position of a very large corporation. You must have a high level of communication and office skills, good relationships with legislators in other counties, and sound practical knowledge of budget processes. I've been dedicated to this county for over 30 years, taken on tough jobs where I've taken tough hits, and I stand in the fray and in the corner for Klickitat County. And I will always do that. I love this county, it's my home, it's where my children are, and this is where I want to see it good, not only for myself, but also your families.
Thank you. Gene?
Pass, no, just kidding. So as the building inspector the last 10 years, I'm doing public service. I've been part of this community for about 40 years, here and there. I still have friends up in the Glenwood Valley for 40 years, and they let me put signs up in their yard, so they still think I'm okay, even my ups and downs in life, where I hit rock bottom and I climbed up, and here I am today. I would have never dreamed 27 years ago that I would be standing here tonight, communicating with everybody. I'm a fighter. Quietly, but I'm a fighter, and I will definitely do my best to fight for the people in Dallesport and Klickitat County if elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Dwayne?
Well, I'll make this short and sweet. I'm a person that's easy to work with. I don't want to be a person that divides communities. I actually want to try to bring people back together. I want to work across the board with commissioners, law enforcement, fire departments, everyone, because that's what makes a community better. And that's what I would strive to do. I want to get back to doing law enforcement, but just stay out of politics. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
I think what sets me apart is my experience in law enforcement. That of my over 35 and a half years of law enforcement experience, 24 years of that has been in a command staff position. My understanding of all aspects of administration are crucial, as one of us is going to replace Bob Sonder as the sheriff. And that's critical to it. But under my leadership, the sheriff's office will operate with values of honesty, transparency, and accountability. And I do believe that constitutional policing is protecting all citizens and allowing them to exercise their constitutional rights, which includes the freedom of speech, the guarantee of due process, and yes, the Second Amendment. I want to enhance the delivery of our services by providing strong customer service, strengthening communications internally and externally with our community, so that we can once again provide you the very best customer service that we possibly can. I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you. Tony?
Last but not least.
Well, you were second first. You didn't want to be first anymore.
This is the last guy gets to drag on longer than 3 minutes, right?
Right. No.
I know we all want to get home. Thank you guys for being here. So again, this campaign isn't about politics. It's about people. It's about ensuring that every single resident feels safe, heard, and respected. My experience in law enforcement has prepared me to lead. Law enforcement has changed a lot, drastically over the last few years. We face new laws, new challenges, and I believe it's essential to have a leader who understands the contemporary realities of law enforcement, managing active cases, guiding our team, and working directly with our dedicated deputies, as I do now, and I will continue to do as sheriff, because I do not like sitting behind the desk all the time. My commitment goes far behind sitting behind that desk. I aim to be an active leader. I will firmly protect your safeties and your freedoms. I will focus on proactive community policing and supporting our deputies so they have the training and resources to serve the public and make it home safe every night. This community is where we work, live, and raise our families. Service runs in my blood. I'm ready to lead the sheriff's office with integrity, transparency, and real-time experiences. So, one thing I have an abundance of is dedication to this profession, dedication to the office, and dedication to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. I was actually gonna ask that we applaud them. And I want to thank them very much for coming. I very much want to thank you for being civil. That was good. And the audience that asked the questions, you asked some very good questions, and I think you guys did a wonderful job. The council members that are here that brought food and everything, they did a good job. Thank you very much, and I want to talk to whoever made those cookies. Anyway, but yes, we've all hope that you enjoyed this and learned things, and hopefully this might have helped you decide who you want and which position, so we appreciate that. Now, they're going to stick around, and they'll probably be milling in that area with their signs and things, but they're more than willing to, if you want to go up and talk to them, they're ready to answer questions one-on-one if you'd like. So at this time, we're finishing early, which is great. Last year was not that way, or 2 years ago. Anyway, so I officially make this meeting over with, and we'll go right into other parts. Thank you very much for coming.